Good afternoon, flosstube. Gem Stitch here for my March and April 2016 update. Just to let you know what projects I've been working on from mid-March to mid-April. So just in case I forget at the end, although I try not to, and I'm going to try not to jiggle this as much as possible as well, because again I'm working from the bedroom because that's the best place for light. Thank you to all my long-suffering subscribers for sticking with me, and thank you to my new subscribers. I am trying to endeavour to keep a monthly update. So this is it for March and April. So where I last left off, which was in March, I was following the Stitch Mania sales, which was It's Not Easy Being Green. And my focus piece was the Peony Pixie, but if you remember from my last video, I actually finished it on that update. So I haven't turned it into an FFO yet, so it's not a fully finished object, and it still isn't. I think that's something I need to address. But yeah, basically I've got that finished. So I had the rest of the month to either go and work on a project that I've already got started, a work in progress, which would normally be the largest project that I have, which is Creation by Tempting Tangles, or I'd actually started a new project because it's actually got a deadline, in the sense that it needs to be ready for Christmas. So it's a Christmas present, and I'm calling it the Bethany birth sampler, but actually it's an ABC, and I'm obviously spelling out her name using the ABC. So when you last saw it, I was on the letter B for Bethany, and I'd nearly got it completed, but I hadn't finished the back stitching, and there was a little bit more stitching to do, in the sense that I had some berries that needed to be stitched on there. So hopefully I'll be able to insert a picture at some point. And my plan of action was to get a letter finished a month, just to show you what the pattern, or not the actual pattern, but what the project will look like. This is the actual complete ABC. So it was this one that I was working on. So I had a couple of little berries to put on under here, and the back stitching as well. And my plan of action was as it's a present and I want to get it done before Christmas, should I finish my focus pieces, then any spare stitchy time I'll work on this project, which is what I did. So I'm going to half keep it on the frame because it's on an extra long piece of fabric, so I didn't want to unravel the whole thing, but just so that you get an idea, I've sort of unclipped one side of it. So this is where we're at. So I obviously finished the B, moved on to the E, which is a beautiful cupcake, and the back stitching. Then actually managed to get onto the T. I'm not sure what you can, yeah, the T. And I'm halfway through the H. So as you can see, at the moment it doesn't look like a H, but I've finished the cake side, like the little heart cream puff thing. And it will look like this here. So that's the H. So next week I'll finish off the rest of the stitching, and potentially the week after I do the back stitching. So I tried to split it up, each letter, trying to do a letter a month, and I tried to split it up into 4 sections to try and have a little target to aim for the week, for the month, to get the letters completed. So actually at the moment I'm 2 months ahead of schedule with this, because I managed to get the E and the T finished last month. So this fabric that I'm stitching it on is a zwaigart fabric. It is 32 count, Belfast linen, and it is in vintage green, which, as I discussed in my last video, but just in case, it's one of those fabrics that's actually printed. It's a printed like sort of hand dyed effect on one side, but it's actually just it's a very, very light green, mint, almost mint green, but it's plain on the other side, which obviously does give you fabric options. If you've got any spares left over and you didn't necessarily want the marble effect, you could just use the other side. So that's my update on the Bethany sample. I'm really pleased with how that's coming along, and hopefully even if I keep up to just one letter a month, I'll be able to get that done well in time for Christmas. And I'm planning on, hoping not to shake this too much, I'm planning on getting it framed, like framing it myself, so that, and as I've never done that, that will give me enough time to do that, especially before the Christmas period where it all goes a bit mad. So the pattern is by Le Brodeuses Parisiennes. I'll put that there, but I'll put all the information in the information box anyway, and it's called the ABC Patissier, and it's a really lovely pattern. I love their ABCs. They've introduced a floral one, and I think it's either Russian, or they're really lovely. The floral one is beautiful, really, really interesting, so I may treat myself to that at some point in the future. So obviously that led me up, and to the letter H, that led me up to April, where I decided to add to my rotation and start a new project, which is the cuore batticuore summer garden. So this is what the pattern should look like. I really love this designer. She's one of my favourites at the moment. And I've decided to keep it in Italian. So this is where I'm at so far. Obviously I've actually only been stitching on it for about 10 days, because I had a real big gap where I didn't stitch anything really too much. So there's not a massive amount of progress, but I'm quite pleased with what I've managed to get done so far. So this is where I'm at so far. I don't know if you can see. So you've got the top bit, and then I'm actually on the lavender. The lavender's all completed, and the next one that I'll be working on will be the poppy, this one. So I'm looking forward to working on the reds, because I think on this blue, such a pretty blue, it'll really pop. So this fabric is the same fabric and the same count as the Bethany sampler, but it's in the blue, so it's 32 counts, zwaigart, Belfast linen, but in vintage blue instead, and I thought that just reminded me of summer skies, or what we hope to be summer skies. It's not like that today. I've been out today, been in a rush, and it's bright, and then it was raining, and then it's bright again, and then it's raining, so I'm hoping that this video is going to show the sort of things that show up the colours reasonably well. We'll have to see. So that is what I'll be, the summer garden will be my focus piece until the 1st of May, and obviously I'll endeavour to get the H finished as well, so that I'll be up to date and on schedule with my plans. So yeah, that's what I've been up to, which leads me to the my plans for May. Now for May, that was actually going to be my time out month, because it's Stitch Mania. Obviously it's how the group started, Facebook group started, and it originally, obviously there have been some variations on this, but originally it was 15 starts for the 15 days in May, but some people are doing 31, 36, depending on their age, celebrating their age, or some people are doing, they're part of the starts every year. So every day of the year, every week, every month. There's lots of variations on it. So, but either way, that isn't suiting me right now. This is the first time I've had multiple whips in progress anyway, so I didn't want to overwhelm myself. So considering that I've actually got planned, there's a project that will take me all the way up to January next year. For the rest of the months, it didn't bother me that 1 month was a time out month, because I felt that then that way it gave me options. So my plan of action for the time out month was either to stitch on a project that I really enjoy, or my largest project, for example, or there's lots of options really, or I could stitch on a project that I've nearly finished, or just stitch in a project that I haven't worked on yet this year. So what I've decided to do, and so far this is my plan of action, but being that it's a time out, I'm not massively concerned about sticking with it. You know, I'm going to go with the flow a little bit. I mean, what I could have done was just ploughed through with the Bethany sampler and see if I could get it finished in May. And I may still do that, who knows. I'm going to see how I feel. But my loose plan of action is to work on a project that I haven't worked on yet. So it's a work in progress, but I haven't worked on it yet because I was actually waiting on new threads being released, and it's the Elizabeth Almond Box of Delights, and I've used Jodrell Designs Antique Silks, but there wasn't enough antique silks released to fill in all the little boxes of chocolates. That's where I'm looking at them. And so what I've decided to do, so I decided to wait, I decided to put it down and wait for some more releases, but there hasn't been a release yet, so for quite a while now, and that was before Christmas. So what I've decided to do is that for a week I'm going to focus on almost starting from the bottom and working my way backwards, filling in the Box of Delights and see how far I get. At least it would have had some work done on it. But this is where obviously I haven't worked on this since last year, and this is where I'm at. So literally I've run out of antique silks to use. This is Jodrell Designs Antique Silks, and it's also DMC for like the ones that didn't have metallic or beading in. Then I just used a plain DMC like you would in a box of chocolates, where you get the like sort of the more plain chocolates. That's what I was thinking. I've used Petite Treasure Braid for the borders, and I've obviously got these little inserts to do as well, but I've only done 2 because I wasn't sure of the colour that I've actually used on those, so I may end up taking them out and putting the gold back in. I'm not sure. I thought that I'll do them at the end, so it's sort of left to interpretation. But yeah, so obviously I filled in these ones because I knew they'd be plain, so I filled them in with a plain DMC, and the border is also a plain DMC that I've used. But obviously these blank ones, that's to be filled in with silks. So what I might do is just for a week, I don't normally do weekly focus pieces, but as it's a time out month, I figured I would, you know, there was no strict, well, my own strictness really, but there was no strict guideline. So I thought for a week I might see how far I can get, and at least I've worked on it as well. So yeah, but that's where it's at, and that's where it's been for since last year. So at least you'll get a little bit of progress done on it. So that's my Box of Delights by Elizabeth Almond. It's a free pattern, and you can get it off of her website. She's the same lady that did the Blackwork Journey, which is Save the Stitches. So yeah, very talented. Blackwork isn't necessarily for me. I've really enjoyed doing this piece, and it's probably a good idea that I had, in a sense, a break from it. I like specialty stitches, but I don't know whether I like a project that's completely filled with the same stitches, unless they're cross, obviously, because I've got projects that are just cross stitching. So, but yeah, so it's been a really enjoyable experience, and I probably would do. I like the idea of her Pandora's box, but I wasn't prepared to put that in my rotation until potentially this is finished. So we'll see. But the fabric is actually a limited edition sparklies. It's showing quite true to colour as it is on the screen. It's pinks, but this was a limited edition, January limited edition by Sparklies, and this is actually a 28 count, and this is an even weave as well. So yeah, but yeah, so I'm planning on maybe pulling this out and working on this for a little while. And then also, as I was mentioning about possibly working on projects that were nearly finished, I figured that I've got a Christmas piece that's so very nearly finished, and normally I would pull it out in November, and that may still be the case, but I would pull it out in November, and November and December is my Christmas pieces, and they always will be. So I don't potentially follow sales because obviously because of my job, and it's just a very busy time of year for my family. I don't tend to have too much time, particularly in December, to stitch, and half of December I don't necessarily have a lot of time. So I've decided, as of last year, I started the project, or started working on the project again in November and December, and that gives me a little bit of extra time to work on it through the build up and the rest of it at Christmas. So this is where I'm at. This is a primitive hare pattern, Charles Dickens. Sorry, there's thread there as well. I'll show you the pattern. So I've got to get that down. So that's the pattern. That's what it should look like. So I really don't have too much more to do. I've got the stagecoach, or the coach, and I've got the snow, got a little bit of the windows, back stitching in the windows, and then literally just on the bottom, which says Tiny Tim and Ebenezer Scrooge, Christmas Carol, Charles Dickens, just on the bottom here. So really not that much left to do when you consider this is where I'm at. So close, so close. So yeah, I'm thinking that I might do that, because should I get it finished next month, that means that come November time, my next Christmas piece will be like a fresh new start on the 1st of November. So if I can do that, then I'll try to do that and get that finished next month. So that will be sort of a focus piece, almost like the reversed focus for a finish. But yeah, so that's my piece so far. And this is on Weeks Dye Works in Baby's Breath, and it's a 30 count linen. I've enjoyed working on it. I know some people, the weave is very loose. I don't know if you can tell, probably not, but the weave is very loose. It's super soft, this fabric, as you can probably see. It's got no, but I don't mind working on it, but then I don't stitch drum tight anyway. I'll always, even if I could get it drum tight, I'll always loosen it a tad. I mean, it's not loose like working in hand, but I will always loosen it a tad, because I don't like pulling, particularly the linens. It's personal preference. So I'm not saying that you're wrong if you do, but it's personal preference for me, because sometimes, especially with linens like these, where they're quite soft and the holes, and there is much more of this irregular feel about them. I feel that when you pull them too tight, it sort of warps the stitching for me. I mean, that could be also the way I stitch. So I always leave it's tight, but it's not drum tight. So there's a little bit of give. So, and then that means that my stitching tends to come out more evenly for me than if I have it drum tight. However, when I've worked on Ada and you use something like a Q-snap or a hoop, I like to have it drum tight then, but Ada's a lot thicker as a material, it's a lot stiffer, so that works for Ada. Again, personal preference, but for me that drum tightness works. It really, you know, I like the feel of it when I'm working with things like Ada, to have it drum tight, but I don't when it's linen, particularly certain linens, and this would be one that I have looser, because this just feels it's softer and more irregular, I suppose is the best way. It's not the best way to describe it, but it's one of those things, it's almost like if you see it you'd go, oh yeah, I know what she means. The things like the Bethany sampler and the let me have a look, the Bethany sampler and the Summer Garden. Now these are actually a linen, they are a Belfast linen, but the zwaigart, although you can see the slubs in it, I don't know if you can actually, but there's got slubs in it. I can have this, I can feel that I can have this a bit tighter. It just feels stronger, like you're not pulling the holes out of sync if you're doing that. Whereas there's certain fabrics that I just feel that you just need a little bit of giving it for me to stitch comfortably, and for my stitches to look more, I mean obviously more even as well. I mean you do have to make a little bit of an effort to help your stitches get more even, but it shouldn't be that hard, because obviously you know your own tension and you know how to get your own tension. But it's just a personal thing. Certain fabrics I feel I need to stitch a little bit looser. I never pull them real tight on Q-snaps or anything, which is why I don't really use Q-snaps. I use frame mainly. I do have a Q-snaps, but I don't tend to use them as much. And just, yeah, so it's personal preference. So yeah, sorry guys, I mean for me this is a really short video, but that is my plan of action for next month. So I plan to work on at least 2 projects. Obviously I'll be getting the next letter in, hopefully the next letter of the Bethany sampler done, which will be A as well next month. So that will be my focus letter for next month, and after that I'll only have 2 more to do, and then I'm going to just backstitch underneath the rest of her details, but just backstitch so that it's not the focus. Her first name is the focus of this sampler. So yeah, but I'm pleased with how that's going, and I am actually looking forward to working on the black work journey, and it would be nice to get it finished for the Christmas Carol, so that I can get a new start in November for my new Christmas piece, which I've already got planned. I haven't got all the threads for it yet, or any actually, but it's mainly DMC and 2 hand-dyed threads that is from a hand dyer off of Etsy, and I was contemplating on switching them out and matching them up potentially with something like Weeks or whatever, but the other part of me is thinking, no, you know, support these small businesses. So I may order, see how my finances go, I may actually order the skeins that's recommended for that one, but it doesn't start until the 1st of November, so I've got a little bit of time to get it here. I suppose the only other thing that I've been focusing on, so it's not every day that I've had off, has been stitching related, is that I've started to consider, and I've made a few project bags. I've actually given most of them away, the ones that I've made, but I'm slowly coming up with other ideas that suit me. I think that's the thing with a project bag. It's whether it suits you or not, and storage and what you want from your project bag as such. And the main thing for me, I mean, I can do like the zip project bags and stuff, and even the fold over ones, which are actually, the fold over ones tend to be my preference, because they're a bit, although this has got a zip in it, for example, let me show you, this has actually got a zip in it, for this size, obviously, because some charts are A4 size and some are smaller. So really, if you wanted to keep the chart with the project, you'd want your project bag to at least be A4 size, unless you was going to fold up your chart, in which case it wouldn't make any difference. But I try not to fold up my charts if I can help it. So so that's an idea as well. It still doesn't solve my problem, and you may have noticed, but the way I have my projects, I roll them up, yeah, like this. So unless they're on a frame, they're all rolled up. And I know some people keep them in postal tubes, that's an idea, and the rest of it, because I don't like folding them. And I know you still have to iron them, even when they're folded up, but you're less likely to have the creases in them when they've rolled up rather than folded. But even in, I keep them in my stitchy trunk, they still get squished. And I mean, this is a perfect example, probably because it's so soft as well, as I was saying, of it looking all creased. I mean, it looks really creased. You can see down the sides, and that's rolled up. It looks that creased. And that irritates me. So I've got a plan and an idea of how I can sort of have a project bag, but still have the projects or the works in progress the way I like them and the way I like to keep them. And actually, even not just that, it's like things like when I've got things that are waiting to be fully finished. For example, from my last video, the Peony Pixie, the French Création de Cristal, the stitching one, they're just rolled up in my stitchy trunk. Oh, it's my cat. That's all right. I'm meant to be here on my own. You know, you hear a noise and you're like, But yeah, as I was saying, they're all rolled up in my stitchy trunk, but they're kind of getting a bit battered. Is the wrong word, because it's not like I put anything in there that shouldn't be in there, but they're getting a bit squished. And so I need to come up with a better storage plan. And the problem that I have is that I know that they do postal tubes different sizes, but I would have to order them in, which means I've got to pay postage on a postal tube that's empty, just to get the different sizes. And that slightly irritates me a little bit. So, but I've come up with a plan, and if the plan works, hopefully I'll be able to show you and share it with you in the next video. And if it works, then that gives me ideas for other things. And storage. I mean, everyone's got their own storage, and it's great that people share it on flosstube and get ideas and stuff, and on how they like to store things. I mean, some people they have the project bags, and they fold them up and they put them in their beautiful, like, handmade project bags, and that's great. And if that suits you, that's fine. But I really don't like folding. I just don't do it. And I can't even imagine doing it. That's the problem. I just don't like it. So I got really itchy nose. It means a surprise coming, apparently. But yeah, so that's sort of my news up to date. And if I make anything that I'm half proud of, I will show you in my next video. So yeah, and obviously it's getting to grips with my sewing machine as well. Because as I said, I haven't actually made anything with my sewing machine since I made the bunting, my Christmas bunting, with my Country Cottage Needleworks, and that was the first project I'd ever made, period. So it's been a long time, and since I'd actually used the sewing machine up until that point, and now I'm slowly building myself up to it. But I've made a couple of project bags, and people they're using them mainly for cosmetic bags and things. But people seem to really like them as well, and obviously it depends, because obviously the fabric that I pick aesthetically isn't pleasing for everybody. I tend to go very traditional. I like sort of vintage Victorian style, and that's the thing. And I will pick up fabric that is vintage style, not all the time, but sometimes, even if it's actually items of clothing that I terribly cut up, and use the fabric from, because I love the fabric but not necessarily the outfit. I will do things like that. I recycle. So and I'm inspired by fabrics and things. That's just and colour, as you know, I love colour and stuff, so I like combinations of things. But yeah, so my plan of action is to also spend some time, you know, making stuff for my cross stitch. So not just cross stitch, but actually making stuff for my cross stitch, so that it, at least if it's going to be out and it's on display, and if you're going to see the bags or whatever I'd come up with to store them in, it's going to be attractive. That's my plan of action. So anyway, this is a very short video for me. Well, still half an hour, but it's a very short video for me. So I hope you are all well. Thank you so much for continuing to subscribe to me, and thank you to all my new subscribers. It's great to see you, and I hopefully will be with you in May. Can't believe it's like nearly halfway through the year. I'll be with you in May with my progress update, and I will see you guys soon. Happy stitching. Bye bye.